Whitestone is a city that has captured the imagination of thousands and been the stage for some of the most dramatic moments in Critical Role history.
It's us!
But is it the most important city in Critical Role? I'm Luna, and let's explore this landmark location together. Well, in our minds, it's imaginary. We can't go there. Yet.
Imagine a sprawling theme park that you could go to and experience the entire world of Critical Role.
It's impossible to talk about Whitestone without spoilers, so here is your spoiler warning. The founding of Whitestone. Before Critical Role was a multimedia phenomenon, it was a Pathfinder game around a table in a living room with hand-drawn maps and snacks on the table. Tal'Dorei Jaffe, the player of Percival Frederickstein von Musil-Kowalski de Rollo III, nailed it, had given the dungeon master, Matthew Mercer, just the bare bones of his backstory: a family murdered and a home overtaken.
I tried to hand you nothing I wouldn't have known. Like everything I gave you from about Whitestone was all, and I remember you specifically saying like, if you have anything else to add, do it now.
And with just those few details, Matt fleshed out an entire city and created some of the most hated and thirsted after villains in the show's history, the Briarwoods.
Lord Silas and Lady Delilah Briarwood.
To understand the role Whitestone plays in the world of Exandria in the present day, we need to go back to the beginning.
Fire. Everything feels slow. There's movement and there's heat.
The Calamity was a time when gods, mortals, and titans fought battles beyond comprehension. 2/3 of the mortal population perished, and the very landscape of the world was rewritten and remade. In the region now known as the Alabaster Sierras, before Whitestone was even thought of, there existed a ziggurat to the Knowing Mistress, the goddess of knowledge, prophecy, and skill. She set a trap in her temple for the chained Oblivion, the betrayer god of death and madness. However, the Oblivion wounded her so grievously that her temple sunk below the ground in her sorrow. Then a mighty battle was fought between the Dawnfather, the champion of the sun, and the chained Oblivion. During this battle, the land was cracked and torn and razed, forming a mountain range. The Dawnfather was able to banish the chained Oblivion, and taking his own divine magic, he returned to the site where the Knowing Mistress was wounded and where magical ley lines intersect, and he planted a seed that would grow into the Sun Tree, a tree of golden light and warmth as a symbol of his protection over the land. As well as the power of the Sun Tree, the very land itself was suffused with the arcane energy that was unleashed during the battle, rendering it as white stone. This stone can be refined down into a powerful magical substance known as residuum. However, it would be many centuries before this was known, and as the final battles of the Calamity were fought, the gods were sealed away and civilization was left to recoup and recover. Around the year 612 PD, approximately 200 years before the world would know the name Vox Machina, a sailing expedition left Port Damali on the southern coast of Wildmount. This expedition was led by the de Rollo family. Now, it might have been a storm, some deep sea beast, or maybe fate that sent that expedition crashing along the shores of the Alabaster Sierras, shipwrecked. Lost, exhausted, and alone, the de Rollos and their denizens traveled through the Sierras looking for salvation, and it was there they found the Sun Tree. Viewing it as a divine sign, which in a way it was, they set to settling around its golden branches, and a city slowly formed that they called Whitestone. We, the audience, as well as the players, got our first glimpse of Whitestone in episode 28 of Campaign 1.
For your reference as well, since you've been here before, you would know the city relatively well.
Maps.
This is the most exciting map I've ever been handed.
So you can... Whoa! A basic rundown of the size, design, and shape of Whitestone, with Castle Whitestone towards the top, built on top of a leveled off mountain that marks the southernmost point.
Preparing for the players' arrival there, Matt had built out the entirety of the city so he could be prepared for any direction they might take.
So prepared for me to go to the temple that you built it?
I built the whole city because I didn't know where you guys were going to go.
This was an early demonstration of just how much thought and work Matthew Mercer puts into his campaigns, and it showed the players and the audience a glimpse of how wide and detailed the world of Exandria would get. So detailed, in fact, that Matt doesn't even consider it finished.
When did the world feel done? And Matt Stone Cold went, it doesn't. With this right here. Folks, get it at your local gaming store, Tal'Dorei Reborn. If that's not done, and this is a continent!
The city itself is rather geographically removed from surrounding civilization. However, the value of Whitestone ore allowed it to grow into a thriving metropolis. The city flourished, and the de Rollos continued to pass on leadership of the city from generation to generation. Castle Whitestone was built directly on top of the remains of the knowing mistress of Ziggurat, with the de Rolos none the wiser. Moving ahead 65 years or so to the year 805, the city was ruled by Lord Frederick de Rolo and Lady Johanna von Musel. They had 7 children: Julius, Vesper, Percival, Oliver, Whitney, Ludwig, and Cassandra. At this time, a mysterious couple arrived in Whitestone, Lord Silas and Lady Delilah Briarwood. They befriended the de Rolos, gaining access to the inner workings of the castle, but little did the de Rolos know that they had made a dark pact with Vecna, the Whispered One. After Silas died of an incurable disease, Delilah sought out forbidden necromantic knowledge and struck a deal with Vecna to bring Silas back. Silas did indeed come back, but as a vampire, and both he and Delilah were ousted from their home in the Dwendalian Empire, and they set their sights on Whitestone. They performed a coup and murdered all of the de Rolos, except for 2 of the children, Percival and Cassandra, both characters who would come to play an integral role in the events of Campaign 1. When Taliesin gave Matt the name the Briarwoods as part of Percy's backstory, he didn't know any of these details, but there must have been a certain psychic synergy between the 2 of them, because...
Weird note on the Briarwoods, also in my head, when I wrote them for myself, I gave them no supernatural elements whatsoever in my head, but I had thought, was reminded of a married couple from New Orleans. There's an old ghost story in New Orleans of one that they do on the haunted house tour of a house that had a fire, and when the fire brigade went in, they went upstairs and they just found disastrously mutilated bodies of people who were obviously had been kept alive for were still alive, like a torture chamber of just awful and weird. And as they were trying to figure this out, the rich couple just got into a coach with their stuff and left and was never seen or heard from again. They were just out. And I find it interesting that they kind of had a similar, later, we're out of here.
The Briarwoods ruled Whitestone with an iron fist and a cruel heart for many years, infusing the city with their dark energy, and all but killing the divine magic of the Sun Tree. With another Wildmount cast out, Dr. Anna Ripley, they began excavations underneath Castle Whitestone to unearth the Ziggurat, as well as constructing acid pits for use in refining residuum. This was all part of a plan to help Vecna, the Whispered One, ascend to godhood. The Sun Tree. We first hear of the Briarwoods in episode 14.
Sovereign finishes writing some papers, rolls them up, snaps twice, and the gentleman comes by and he hands them papers and says, "Give these to Lady and Lord Briarwood as soon as possible, thank you." All right, so, first of all, I want to...
This very subtle reaction from Percy downplays the monumental story the party are about to find themselves in. Once Percy revealed the Briarwoods' role in his family's demise to his friends and the party encountered the Briarwoods themselves, they decided to go to Whitestone to see what could be done. They entered the town, finding it a grim and desolate place, its people scarred and scared, and the streets walked by huge undead giants. But the most horrifying sight was found hanging from the dead branches of the Sun Tree.
Figures that are hanging there. Percy and Vax, you guys notice the figure on the far left.
The body.
The body on the far left has a red paint smattered across its face and its arms. It's wearing a dirtied green vest-like robe that dangles below it as it hangs there loosely. Immediately to the left of it, you see what looks to be the body of a child. The child is dressed up in a purple-ish, billowing shirt, a very fine silk shirt and pantaloons, and is dangling there next to it. To the left of that, you see it appears to be a female, adorned in greens and browns. Looks like red paint has been driven through the hair, and dangles to the left of that figure. Next to that, you see what appears to be...
I'm walking the fuck away.
You see what appears to be another woman dressed in dark blacks and browns, leathers, some furs across the top, dark hair, dangling. To the left of that, you see another man dressed similarly, dark grays and blacks, long dark hair, dangling. To the left of that, you see a rather large man, older, rotund, probably in his 40s, clothing padded but mostly open chest, hair completely shaved bald. Looks like there are dark scars or placed across the face, hanging. To the left of that, you see this figure is actually not humanoid. It appears to have been
oh my god,
a recently hunted bear that is dangling.
No.
Wait, what? Is that us?
It looks like us.
What?
It's us.
They killed people they thought were us. Or they killed.
Or it's a message.
Or it's a message to us.
Do they look like...
This moment here, in my opinion, is one of the most important moments in Critical Role history. It made it clear to the party and the audience that when you are making decisions and picking battles, there are consequences. Prior to this, I feel, Vox Machina were a bit cocky, a bit arrogant, very sure of themselves as the heroes of the story. This moment that is so personal and horrifying is a stark reminder that things are moving outside of what we see with the members of Vox Machina. In the animated series, we got to see this moment as it played out off-screen in a way that really hit home how brutal and evil the Briarwoods are, and the dead branches of the Sun Tree in this first introduction to Whitestone represent that cruelty and dark power. And it's not just Campaign 1 that this moment affected, but through one of our Campaign 3 characters, Laudna, we actually get to meet one of the people hanging from that tree. The reveal of Laudna as one of the bodies hanging from the Sun Tree and subsequent trip to Whitestone was so incredibly impactful for critters who had watched Campaign 1 and the animated series because of the importance of the city on the story.
I remember being tossed. Clothes to wear. Told to change. Be served a wonderful dinner, which we were. It was actually quite fantastic. It was like a filet, a little surf and turf, had some lobsters. And then that was it. They dragged me away, separated me from my parents. Was brutally beaten, and then it's a little fuzzy after that, but next thing I remember was waking up being hung from a tree. It was the Sun Tree, actually. It was quite a spectacle.
Yeah, I gathered. I'm so sorry.
After infiltrating the city, Vox Machina coordinated with the resistance formed by Whitestone citizens and were able to recover Percy's long-thought-dead sister, Cassandra. Together, Vox Machina was able to take on the Briarwoods and defeat them. The Briarwoods story did not end there, but for now, Percival and Cassandra Dorolo had reclaimed their family home and their titles. Together, they founded the Chamber of Whitestone, a ruling body that could help guide and shape the recovery of the city. And in future events of Campaign 1, we get to see Whitestone in recovery, the people who live there being able to come out from under that oppressive regime and begin to restore the city and the Sun Tree. Of course, in the streamed game, what Whitestone looked like was just in the players' and audience's imaginations. We're given some details in the Tal'Dorei campaign setting books, with the buildings of Whitestone described as having roofs built to look like ship hulls as a tribute to the Dorolo's arrival to the Sierras. But it's not until the animated series that we really see this city come to life as the characters move through the streets and buildings.
Well, now we are designing the Whitestone Keep, and I'm going, oh, there's a little garden back there, and this is the market district, and oh wow, the tree is really big. Oh no. You put those amazing things on the top of the spires. I'm like, oh, that's so nice. Look at that.
Oh, there's
that's
Whitestone.
amazing.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Yep.
That was another early shot that we got
Oh
at the beginning of it all that
yeah,
we
the
just
iterations.
stared at, dumbfounded.
Yeah.
At Whitestone.
With the induction of Cassandra as the leader of the Chamber of Whitestone, Vox Machina leave the city to continue on their adventures, and Whitestone is left to rebuild. But of course, the city's role in Critical Role doesn't end there. The Chroma Conclave. Following the events of the Chroma Conclave, a world-shaking event in which multiple cities were destroyed by a group of dragons, Whitestone became a haven for refugees whose homes had been destroyed. This greatly increased the population of the city, which had been decimated during the Briarwoods' rule. Whitestone became a home base for the rebellion and a place where Vox Machina could prepare and plan their return assault on the Chroma Conclave. And it wasn't just a home base, it really felt like a home. Vox Machina's home in Iman, Greyskull Keep, was mostly destroyed during the attack of the Chroma Conclave and had to be abandoned, so we didn't get to spend a huge amount of time there. Whitestone, for all intents and purposes, was a home for Vox Machina during the campaign, and for some members of the party, a permanent home after the campaign ended. As we learn in Tal'Dorei Reborn, Percy and Vex raised their family there, Pike moved there and built a temple to the Everlight and oversaw the bakery The Slayer's Cake, and Grog hosts a quadrennial luncheon of champions in Whitestone. Matt Mercer, I think, recognizing both the significance of the city to the story and the party, as well as the importance of having a safe haven haven you can return to, gave in-game protection from the Chroma Conclave to the city using the high-powered NPC Allura Vaisurin, a powerful mage from the Tal'Dorei Council. She built a protective ward over the entire city made out of 5 Whitestone obelisks erected around the city, which when activated by an arcane spellcaster formed a shield of illusory magic, and were put to the test when an ancient white dragon flew overhead with an army of wyverns. Being unable to see or hear the city below, they flew away, leaving Whitestone safe. Having a permanent home like Whitestone is so important because it really grounds the characters into the surrounding world. Instead of just traveling across the setting and never really feeling like there is any way to pause or catch a narrative rest, a permanent in-world home can let the characters put down roots, nurture relationships with the folks who live there, and feel like they have something to fight for and return to in the darkest moments of the campaign. Anyone who's played D&D and has built an in-game home knows just how special and personal those spaces can feel. Impact on Exandria. Whitestone is not only important on a personal level to Vox Machina, it's also incredibly important in the ongoing stories that we see unfolding in the rest of Exandria, mainly due to its main export, Residuum. Mechanically, Residuum can be used to substitute any spell components that are consumed by the casting of the spell, such as diamonds for Revivify, golden dust for Arcane Lock, and diamond dust for Stone Skin. 1 pound of pure Residuum is worth 500 gold pieces. It can also be refined into a drug called Sood, which was created by the mages of the Age of Arcanum and inhaled in order to enhance their focus during spellcasting. Its use is rather dangerous, however, as Scanlan once learned.
I will dip a torch into a bit of lava to light it. And I am going to bong rip from this ancient brass flute.
Alrighty. I need you to make a Constitution saving throw.
Constitution saving.
Constitution saving.
Constitution saving throw.
Constitution saving throw.
Not good.
No.
8.
8. Roll 1d4.
Here we go. Here we go.
Again.
3.
As you inhale deeply, as opposed to the burning sensation from when you decided to snort the granules, the smoke and mist that emerges as it fills your lungs actually has a very fine herbal taste to it almost, and it is warm, and there's a head rush immediately that hits you. You feel for a moment your vision kind of crystallize and clarify. All of a sudden, all the colors become briefly brighter, and you feel this slight pulse of energy whenever you cast a spell. Like the fingers kind of warm at the tips, and you feel the immediate need to just practice something right before your vision gets blurry and dark.
Residuum has popped up a number of times in Campaign 2, Campaign 3, and Exandria Unlimited. It is an incredibly powerful substance with multiple factions trying to get their hands on some. In-game, we've seen it be used for helping forward, accessing powerful Age of Arcanum magic, as a weapon in combat, and most disturbingly by Trent Ikathon, who implanted shards of it in his students' flesh to enhance their spellcasting abilities. Because it is such a powerful substance, the Chamber of Whitestone only exports it in small, controlled quantities. But whenever there is power, there is greed and opportunity, and smuggling operations of Residuum have popped up throughout the campaigns. What ongoing impacts it will have on future Critical Role stories remains to be seen. The future of Whitestone. Whitestone has played an integral part in Critical Role and is poised to continue to do so. With Laudna's unresolved threads, it's likely we will see a return to Whitestone in Campaign 3, and the animated series will continue to feature it as we venture further into the Chroma Conclave, especially as Keeper Yenin, the head priest of Whitestone, features much more heavily in the animated series than in the campaign. Some members of Vox Machina are living out their days of retirement there, with Percy adding arcane engineering around the city, including the Heart of Whitestone, a majestic clock which tracks the major holidays of Tal'Dorei, the lunar cycles of Carther and other celestial bodies, and depicts famous events from Tal'Dorei's history. He has also installed an electric power grid which lights up the city at night and is powered by the acid pits beneath the city. Perhaps in future campaigns and Critical Role stories we will see Whitestone challenged once again by a threat like the Chroma Conclave, or we might see player characters taking on the roles of Vex and Percy's children as they begin their own adventures. There are so many story threads and connections back to Whitestone across all of Critical Role's campaigns, books, comics, and animated series that it's hard to imagine what it would look like without it. If it were not for that moment when Percy recognizes the name Briarwood, things could have taken a completely different trajectory. Whatever the future holds for Critical Role and its characters, one thing is for sure, Whitestone will always be home. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of Whitestone. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please make sure you give it a like and subscribe. It actually took me a really long time to make, as my patrons will attest. I've been working on this for a really long time, so Thank you very much. And if you're looking for something to watch in the meantime, why not check out my Campaign 3 overarching recap so you can get a really quick summary of all the campaign events right here. Bye!